We're back. It's the Sunday Night Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast where we're going to talk about the week ahead. If you like hot weather, it's coming. If you like wet weather, go to Florida. If you got like really wet weather, go to South Florida because it looks like they're going to be getting clobbered with rain. And of course, you have the usual potpourri of showers and thunderstorms and bouts of severe weather running around across the nation. And we are here to cover it all tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. The revolutionary Tempest weather system is yours if you just go to the website and buy it. And you can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the description to this podcast. And if you purchase anything from the Tempest website, be it the weather station or any of the other lovely gadgets and gizmos and smart weather fashion that they have, use that coupon code SPRING 2024 because if you do, you will get.
You'll get 10% off, Joe.
And I thought it might not be a bad idea to start off tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast
Yes.
with a picture of one of the four striped bass that I caught yesterday
Oh,
on,
wow. Look at that.
and that wasn't even the big one, Joe. That was a fair sized one, but it wasn't the big one.
Oh,
But that was a nice striper. This is my son-in-law with the striper that he caught. And this one was the big one. Okay, this was over 15 pounds. I was having, I don't know if you look at my face, I'm gritting my teeth because I'm having to hold it while he took the while Jason the man that took us out yesterday from Big Old Fish is the charter boat, the charter company that we use here in town, and he was great, by the way. Um, so this was the big one, and you can see my grandson is pointing to the striped bass.
yeah. Wow.
It was
15, you said?
that had to be at least 15 pounds.
Wow.
That was no tiny fish. Okay, it was not. It was no guppy. Let's put it that way. In fact, the the interesting thing about it was that I had my line down about 30 feet into the water, and I got him on the line, so I'm reeling him in. He's pulling me out, so that um, he pulled out to 100 feet. So I then was able to start to reel him in, and the uh, the captain of the boat turned. It was just myself, my son-in-law, and the kids. So he turned the motor off. So the fish actually pulled the boat toward him
Ah,
as opposed to the other way around. But it was. It took me about 50, I think it took me about. It seemed like it was about 10 or 15 minutes to reel him in. He was a good catch. He was a solid catch. Uh, And
you
I
know, you're,
also,
you're bringing memories back of the movie Jaws when Robert Shaw, we never see what he did eventually hook because it got away. But you remember that scene where he's like sitting there and all of a sudden the reel begins to turn on its own
right.
and then wraps himself in and starts fighting whatever it is on the end of the line or whatever. Eventually, it gets away in part because of Richard Dreyfuss doing something, and the whole thing snaps, and he. But man, that's what a feeling that must be to hook something like that and then have to get into a struggle to hold the darn thing
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, it was it was a challenge, and you don't want to lose it because then you feel then you're depressed. I mean, and I catch and release. I don't keep the fish. If I did, somebody would have to be there to clean it because I don't clean fish.
Yeah,
So and the boat people that we went out with, they don't do it. They used to do it, but they don't do it anymore. But that's just as well. So we just do catch and release, and we have a good time. And we were out there for 4 hours. I was out on Lake Hiawassee in North Carolina because I live 20 miles from. It was about an hour's drive from my house. I live 20 20, 25 miles from the North Carolina state line. So it was it was about an hour's drive to get there. The lake was, I mean, it's just really beautiful, very scenic. It was my first time there, and a few people have told me that it's really pretty, and they weren't kidding. It was beautiful. The local lake here, Lake Nottely, is also beautiful. It's a different sort of, setup, but it's also quite scenic. But this was a wonderful experience, and I would love to go again. It's a little expensive, so I can't do it every week or every month, but maybe in the fall I'll do another trip.
This brings back evokes memories of when I was a very young boy, and my father would take me out to Atlantic Beach on the jetty, where he and other fishermen were trying to land striped bass, and occasionally they did. It was now where you were. You don't have anything like crashing waves or anything, right? Or
Oh, no, not unless another boat goes by
yeah, yeah,
and
that's
and you get the wake from the boats. No, no, it's for these are freshwater lakes here we're talking about that have these striped bass in them.
right. See, that's the difference between what you did and what I used to do as a young boy. You know, you'd have to perilously go out on a rocky jetty, make sure you don't slip and fall because it was slippery on those
Oh
rocks.
yeah.
And you had to worry because not all days, but some days, the surf was really rough. And, the waves crashing onto the rocks. And here you have these guys out with their fishing poles trying to get a striped bass. If you got a striped bass after being out there for a few hours, you did good. But I mean, obviously, you did on that flat lake or whatever. You did a lot better than the guys who were fishing out in the wide open ocean. So
Doing it on the boat is the way to go. I mean,
yeah,
the jetty is you take your life into your own hands.
yeah,
One slip and you're done.
yes,
I mean,
exactly.
you could easily fall and break a bone, or far worse. But this was a very, very lovely experience, and I truly enjoyed myself. Also caught two spotted bass, and the kids and my son-in-law they got two catfish, uh, two nice sized catfish.
That's
We're
what
not.
makes that's what makes it good. Not so much the fact that you caught striped bass and other fish. That's nice. But I mean, you were out there with your son-in-law and your
Yeah,
grand.
and the grandsons. Yeah. Oh, it was just such a great day. And these are my grandsons are young, so you know it's hard to keep their attention going in one place for 4 hours. I mean, we were out on the boat for 4 hours. Thank God we caught fish almost right away, because that kind of got them excited. Then there was like a bit of a lull for about an hour and a half, and it was starting to get to the point where one of the kids was sort of like, "Oh, when are we going home?" And then all of a sudden, the stripers just came, and they kept coming and coming. So it was a good day. Anyway, hope everybody had as nice a weekend as I had. Welcome to everybody on the chat board and those of you lurking in the background tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're glad you're here. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss us, because you know what? We're on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays are off days unless there's a storm around, in which case we adjust the schedule and we let you know about it. And if you like the show, hit the like button. Anthony Orr not only hit the like button, but he also hit super chat and bang the tip jar. So thank you, Anthony Orr, for doing that. So looking ahead to a new week. Next weekend is Father's Day weekend, and we've got what looks like a dry and seasonal start in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states, and then we're gonna we seem to transition over to heat at as we get to Thursday and Friday. Maybe we get a cold front to go by with some thunderstorms late Friday into Friday night, and then if everything moves along according to my plan anyway, Joe, the Father's Day weekend looks like a good weekend.
I agree with you completely. I think that during this week we're going to have dry weather for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then Thursday you're going to start noticing the fact that it is becoming more humid. We'll have sunshine, but it's going to be warmer and noticeably more humid for Thursday, and then just Friday. your typical midsummer, hazy, hot, humid day with temperatures flirting with 90. And probably, I think, Joe, we'll have to wait until late afternoon for the first risk or threat of any kind of shower or thunderstorm activity, which will carry over into Friday night. And then hopefully, and with guarded optimism, that cold front that you just mentioned will push on through completely. All right. If you're up really early on Saturday morning, there might still be a shower lingering somewhere. But by later in the morning and especially the afternoon, sun will be back out, a noticeable decline in the humidity, and a noticeable decline in the temperatures. In fact, it looks like a great day on Saturday with low 80s and just a perfect Father's Day Sunday with temps in the lower 80s and a goodly amount of sunshine.
Meanwhile, uh, it's been super hot in Florida, and we've been commenting on that from time to time, especially in Central and South Florida with the ridiculous heat indices in the 100, 110 plus range in some places. Now, as we go through this week, we're going to see uh, showery rains start to pop up tomorrow and Tuesday. And then it looks like the tropical spigots open up, Joe. A lot of moisture is going to be coming up from the Caribbean, lower pressures, lower than normal pressures in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. This is one of those things where I'll just kind of say right off the bat, whether a tropical storm forms or not really doesn't matter here too much because at the end of the day, we're talking about so much moisture that's going to be streaming northward from the deep tropics into Florida that they're going to get clobbered with rain. If we wind up getting a tropical depression or a tropical storm developing out of this, uh, it doesn't really change it's not going to change anything. They're still going to get hit with a ton of rain, and WPC's got has some really bullish rainfall totals for the next 7 days, which we'll get to shortly in South Florida.
Yeah, and of course, we've been talking over the last week or two about the possibility of Alberto making an appearance before too much longer by the middle part of this month. And what you need in order to make a tropical system or a tropical cyclone is, of course, lots of moisture, which is what the folks down in Florida certainly have a premium on. So we'll be watching and seeing what happens over the next week or 10 days. And my wife has just posted on the chat board our high today was 72. It's now 65, but for a good part of the day, thanks to a gusty breeze, it felt like it was in the 60s, even a really coolish kind of June day. Kind of refreshing out there, but not too bad.
We had showers this morning.
We had thunderstorms this morning. We
That's
had
what
thunders.
that's what I said.
Oh, you had shower. You had shower. You said showers, right? Or
I'm kidding. Yeah.
okay. Well, actually, we had showers with a few rumbles of thunder. I mean, we did not have the explosive thunder. We did not have any severe weather, but along about 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, it did get a bit wet, and we did pick up, I think, something like 0.14 inches of rain out of that. But it was pretty well over with, and the skies cleared by late morning and midday, and we had in and out clouds and bright sunshine for the remainder of the afternoon. By the way, and I'd be interested to know if any of you in the immediate tri-state area or in the Northeast have the same problem that we have in Putnam County. And also I know is also occurring up in parts of Dutchess and also Ulster County. We have an outbreak, Joe, of the gypsy moth. We have gypsy moth caterpillars all over the place. Now we had this happen several years ago, and I actually lost a couple of trees, one big beautiful oak tree that succumbed to the gypsy moth, and now they're back. And you could know that they're back because, well, number one, you look down and you see these ugly black caterpillars moving on by, but also a lot of the leaves now have holes in them because the caterpillars are feasting on the leaves. I presume that in another few more weeks, the caterpillars will turn into these ugly brownish white moths, which will be flying around or fluttering around. But right now, not too nice a situation with the caterpillars.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good at all because they'll chew up a whole tree without too
They'll
much difficulty.
kill it. As I said, I lost not one but two, and one in particular, big, beautiful oak tree. I mean, like it's we didn't take it. I mean, like it's still standing. A tall, majestic tree. It's still standing, but there's nothing on it now, and you could the branches are bare. Wintertime now, partially covered by other trees that are surrounding it, but we lost that tree thanks to the gypsy moths. Carol DeChera, no, they don't turn into butterflies. They turn into ugly looking moths after about 3, 4, 5 weeks. And so I'm going to make the assumption that that's what's going to happen here
You
as
need to
we
get some bats in there to eat the moths.
we do have. I saw my first bat last night. I was walking the dog around dusk and looked up, and they look like half sparrow, half giant moths, but they're around. They fly around during the summertime.
Oh, yeah, which reminds me, by the way, there's one other thing I wanted to show you. Because I finally, after I don't know how you are about when you get something that's electronic and it requires assembly. Um, I don't want to do it. So I got my daughter had given me, and unfortunately, I'm searching for it and I can't seem to find it. Um, but I'll send you a video privately with about this. So my daughter had given me a hummingbird feeder. I think I told you it has a camera and an app on your phone, and it has a motion detector, so you get a notification when the hummingbirds are on it. And
Right.
anyway, I she gave it to me for Christmas. It's been sitting. The box has been staring at me for the last 6 months. I finally uh, my neighbor Addison, who's far younger than I am, he helped me put it together and go through the frustration of installing the app and installing the memory card and all the rest of it. But I got to tell you, it is so cool uh, to have the motion detector goes off, and I can wherever I am, I'll get a notification, and I can just punch up the hummingbird feeder live, and it records the video as well. And I'm thinking it's one hummingbird so far that comes like every hour to an hour and a half to feed, and then he goes and he comes back, and there's like 5 holes in the thing where he can stick his beak in. So he goes from he starts with one and he goes through each one at a time. I'm glad it's up because I'm really enjoying it.
I would assume that you have. Well, of course, you're east of the Mississippi. East of the Mississippi, there's only one hummingbird.
Right, the ruby-throated hummingbird.
That's the ruby throat. Yeah, yeah.
There's
Every
like
once in a while,
there's
you'll
like
get
15 different kinds in the West. There's only one in the East.
every once in a while you'll get one of those other hummingbirds from the west that creeps into the east. But more often than not, well, 99% of the time, the hummingbird you'll see here will be the ruby throat. Beautiful.
Yeah, we also I see them sometimes. I don't know if it's because they're young and they haven't fully matured yet, but sometimes I'll see ones that are green, unless that's one of those renegade Western ones that decided to vacation in the
I think
Southeast.
you're right. I think the green ones. If you see the ruby throat is only on the male. The
Also,
female,
maybe it's the female.
it's a female probably.
Right. In the bird world, females are usually pretty drab.
Exactly. I mean, the cardinal, for example, beautiful red color on the male. On the female, it's kind of an olive green type coloration.
Right. Right. And that's because she's raising the baby, so she needs to be camouflage. We could get into a lot of trouble if this conversation continues, so I'm just going to just move on. And let's go to the watches and warnings map for tonight. And we do have actually, just before the show started, I'm on the edge of a localized thunderstorm that developed. I can't even see it on the radar. The radar's not even showing it. And I got a text from my friend Craig who told me that he's on the other side of town, about 20 miles away. And He says it's like a hurricane over there with the wind and the heavy rains. So we briefly had some loud thunder, and then for about 30 seconds it poured very hard, but now it's just stopped. But we do have severe thunderstorm watches up tonight in central Alabama, northern Mississippi, and across through central Arkansas, across the entire state of Arkansas, going from east to west, covering much of the middle. And these are two separate watch boxes that the SPC has put up. We've got heat issues in the southwest because that's where the ridge is right now, and also in parts of California where we've got heat advisories and excessive heat warnings up. And in northeastern Minnesota, and northern Wisconsin, we have a few frost advisories up there. And in the east, it's pretty quiet. Nothing really, as far as the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states are concerned, and then back through the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley, this is going to be a relatively quiet week until the end, when we've got the cold front. And of course, the bigger story is going to be what happens down in Florida as this tropical moisture starts to pull up. And on the satellite loop tonight, the Northeast, after those morning showers and rumbles of thunder moved out. You can see the comma that is now well off the coast of New England and passing through Nova Scotia and New Brunswick and moving out of eastern Maine. That's gone by. We still have the upper trough and the upper low to the northwest, but this looks like this was the last upper trough to worry about in this sequence. And then this whole thing is just going to pull out. And meanwhile, where the boundary line is with this front, which is going to wind up pushing further south, we have this east-west batch of clouds and showers and thunderstorms. You can see the lightning strikes that are showing up from eastern Tennessee and into northern Georgia. Actually, it actually shows the lightning strikes north of me. They're now northeast of me, and then back through Arkansas. That whole area is slowly sinking southward. We also have some storms up in parts of West Texas and into New Mexico. And here's what it looks like on the radar tonight. Still some showers though, and some heavier showers in upstate New York. There's a fairly active band in southwest New York State going northeast towards Syracuse and then beyond. The more active part is in the west, uh, from Rochester to just east of Jamestown, and that's moving southeast. And you can see the back edge of the rain going out of Maine, but raining pretty hard in most of New Brunswick. And then, of course, the very active radar in eastern Tennessee, uh, moving into western North Carolina, the thunderstorms and a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings in northern Mississippi and northwest Alabama, and then cutting across central Arkansas. And then further west, we've got some boomers in northwest Texas into New Mexico, and then kind of snaking up I-25 into Colorado with some severe weather going on around parts of Denver, and also a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings, one in southeast Idaho, the other one in southeastern Oregon. So that covers the radar. I was thinking, by the way, at the end of the week that there's a chance that severe weather, that cold front on Friday. I know it's a little bit early, but there's a nice little shortwave with that. So I'm wondering whether that might be something that might be more than just a few scattered showers and thunderstorms when it goes by.
Yeah, it'll be worth watching. The cold fronts, and this one looks like it's going to lean, so to speak, down from the north more than just coming straight in from the west. So those kind of fronts sometimes do generate some nasty thunderstorms, which literally come down I-87. And yeah, that'll be something to watch. Again, probably late in the day on Friday and into or through Friday night. By the way, you mentioned showers right now, Joe, up toward Syracuse. There is still the chance that for in the lower Hudson Valley places, let's say north of Interstate 84, you may have a shower crossing on by between now and midnight tonight. Otherwise, thereafter, everybody should just clear out. And when you wake up tomorrow morning, it should be nice, bright, and sunny, and should be a nice stretch of days coming up.
Yes. And there's the Storm Prediction Center tonight with the slight risk in Arkansas into Mississippi and northwest Alabama. You see the two blue boxes there, indicative of the severe thunderstorm watches. There's a mesoscale discussion over the thunderstorms that are now moving into western North Carolina down into South Carolina, but they're saying a severe thunderstorm watch is unlikely for that particular region. And then the marginal risks that sneak up the Rockies and then go back west into Idaho and into Oregon. And by the way, tonight, tornado risk is less than 2%. Doesn't mean you can't have one, but the risk is below their 2%, 2% threshold. And then tomorrow, we've got marginal risk coastal South Carolina, southern Georgia to the Florida Panhandle to the Alabama and Mississippi Gulf Coast. Marginal risk from in the western plains and then up through Colorado, eastern Wyoming, western Nebraska and South Dakota, where we have a slight risk, and then it goes back to marginal risk into eastern Montana. The tornado risk tomorrow, 2% in western South Dakota and in western Nebraska. And for Tuesday and Tuesday night, we have a small area of marginal risk northwest Texas into central Texas. And you can see, obviously, in the east, and I'll just go back to day two, which is Monday into Tuesday. General thunderstorms up in Maine and from Virginia south, but everybody else in between, eastern Pennsylvania to southern and central New England and New York State, no thunderstorms are forecast, nor for the Great Lakes, the Ohio and Tennessee Valley, just pretty quiet for tomorrow. And then for the next day, it's a fairly large area, shows you the extent of this big high uh, with no thunderstorms except for Maine, central and eastern Maine. It's quiet all the way down to the southeast coast and the Gulf Coast and back to the western lakes and into the plains and parts of the Rockies. So we've got that. We do have in the long range, it should be pointed out, on day four, SPC's already got an implied slight risk for eastern South and eastern South Dakota, northeastern Nebraska, western Iowa, and southwestern Minnesota. And for day five, they have an east-west area of implied slight risk. So day five is Thursday into Friday. Northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, much of Iowa, northern Missouri, northernmost Kansas, and eastern parts of Nebraska. So it's on the long range for day four and five. So that tells you that SPC uh, thinks highly of the risk if they have it in the long range. WPC, Joe, you don't see this too often, except maybe when we're talking about hurricanes. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. But if we look in Florida, that patch of yellow that you see in the southwest coast of Florida is 15 inches or more that they're forecasting. And that,
Ouch.
that other color, which is the sort of darker yellow, that goes up north of Lake Okeechobee, but south of Orlando, Tampa, and Tampa, that is a 10-inch, that's a 10 to 15-inch area. So Miami's in that, Fort Lauderdale, the Keys, and then you go one step further as you go up further north, and now we're going up toward Tampa, Orlando. This is in the 7 to 10-inch range. So we're talking some big rains here. Now, it's been very dry. A lot of Floridians have messaged me to remind me that it's been quite dry lately in Florida. So they would welcome some rain. I don't think that they would welcome 15-inch plus rains. And as I said at the beginning of the show, this is regardless, and this is a 7-day rainfall forecast. A lot of what's going to go on in Florida really isn't going to start till the real stuff that matters isn't going to start till later, later Wednesday or Wednesday night and beyond. So we're talking Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And these are 7-day rainfall amounts here. So this is a lot of water that we're talking about. And regardless of whether we get a tropical storm out of this or not, the tropical feed is real. Very, very strong push of moisture coming out of the Western Caribbean that's moving northward below normal pressures, surface and aloft in the Gulf of Mexico. There's a bit of an upper low that's going to be there that's going to drive all this moisture north and northeastward. The good news is for the Northeast and for the mid-Atlantic states, you can see that the amount of rainfall here is minimal, and in some cases, nothing for the next 7 days.
Right. That one area of precipitation over Long Island and New York and the lower Hudson Valley, northern New Jersey, that's probably from the threat or risk of late day and nighttime thunderstorms on Friday. And again, as the week progresses, we here at Joe and Joe will make a determination as to whether or not, well, actually, our determination is going to be based primarily on what the folks at SPC think in terms of the possibility of regular thunderstorms or possibly something a little bit more than that, maybe severe. But um, you mentioned about Florida, Joe, and the 10 to 15 inches over the south half of the state. I'm wondering, people who have lived all their lives up in New York, and say, okay, we're getting up in years now, we're retired, we're going to do what we always wanted to do, we're going to move down to Florida. Florida, the Sunshine State. And I wonder if they're aware, really, of the high level of humidity that they have to deal with after the month of May begins, and B, the threat of, I mean, not just heavy rain, but occasional torrential rain or downpours or drownpours, which is probably what they're going to be seeing, these tropical showers in the coming days ahead. And, you probably, the people who've never been down to Florida, well, this never happened in New York. They didn't tell us about this, or.
Well, right, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, we have had a couple of instances in the last several years with, you know, s- quote unquote surprise heavy rainfalls that apparently everybody knew about except the politicians. But uh, a lot of those people, Joe, wind up moving back northward, but they don't go back to New York. They come to Georgia. They're coming to Georgia. They're coming to South Carolina, and they're coming to North Carolina. So that's what happens when they realize that how hot it really is. For for I was going to say 3 months, but it's likely longer than that. If you're in Central to South Florida, I just could not handle that for that long.
You ever see the episode of Seinfeld where Elaine is begging Jerry's parents? They go down to visit them in Florida, and she's begging the parents, please, please turn on the air conditioning, please. And the mother looks at her and says, "You're hot?"
Well, as soon as it drops, once it drops under 75, they're out there with their coats.
Right,
The
exactly.
the body acclimates to this stuff.
Yes,
But one thing is, I did notice the times that I've been down to Florida in the summer months, nobody is out during the day. If you're going outside uh, after about 9 or 10 a.m., you really don't see too many people wandering outside during the daytime. They're out in the early morning, they're out in the evening, and then they're in the house all day in the air conditioning. I'm not living like that.
right, exactly,
Exactly. And by the
exactly.
way, just as a side, Atlanta, I just was looking before the show started. It was 91 degrees in Atlanta at 7 o'clock. It was 78 here. And then I had that rumble of thunder with the rain, and my temperature is down to 70. And I only got to 82 today. Atlanta got to 90. I think we got 91 or 92 for a high. And, I was a full 10 degrees cooler here. So it's nice being up in the mountains and using the elevation to my advantage. So let's look at the jet stream pattern because this is what really is ultimately the driver. And of course, when you look at the upper air tonight, you've got this deep trough. There's an upper low sitting in just in almost into western Maine. We've got a fairly strong northerly flow, north and northwest flow coming out of eastern Canada into the mid-Atlantic states. So that's pushing relatively dry air pretty far to the south. And you've got ridging that's up the Rockies, a little bit of troughing along the west coast, but it's on the weak side. And as we move along, going through this week, we're going to see some subtle changes and some not so subtle changes. The trough in the east is going to hang around through Tuesday and weaken. And then on Wednesday, it's still some remnants of it are still hanging by. But after that, the ridge in the upper high that's in New Mexico and Texas kind of starts to push eastward. But there's another shortwave trough, and you see it here coming into the western links on late Thursday and Thursday night, and then swinging into the east late Friday night, and early Saturday. That's a not To me that is not a half bad looking shortwave trough that's going to go through. So again, I put it on the table that, and you said you were on the same page with me with this, that we're going to have to watch to see what happens at the end of the week. Meanwhile, take a look. You look down in the Gulf of Mexico. You've got this big upper high in Texas, and then there's an upper high that's well out to the east of the Bahamas. So you got this hole in the middle, and it doesn't show up very much, but here on this one map next Sunday, there is an upper low in the Western Gulf. So that's creating this flow from the Caribbean up into Florida. We've got a ridge here in the eastern part of the United States next Sunday with northwest winds in the upper atmosphere. So anything that's going on down here in Florida and along the southeast coast can't come up the eastern seaboard. If it tries, it's going to hit that northwest flow and get suppressed out to the southeast. So that's a plus. And then a big ridge builds in after Father's Day, Joe. Starting Father's Day, actually, a big upper high starts to build in the southeastern states and along the East Coast, and it stays there pretty much. Now, this is now Tuesday. This is let me go back. So this is next Sunday into Sunday night, Monday. So now we're at Tuesday the 18th. That ridge in the east kind of stays there right through the 19th and 20th. So it looks like we might have a fairly long stretch of some hot weather coming, uh, starting later, if not Father's Day, certainly the next day. So this might be the first quote unquote heat wave, perhaps, for the East.
Yeah, CPC, Climate Prediction Center, has been red flagging a spell of unusually warm, if not downright hot weather throughout a good part of the Midwest and Northeast for the middle and latter part of the month. So that may very well be what's coming our way after Father's Day. We'll see.
GFS rainfall amounts you can see in Florida, especially in South Florida. The GFS model is generating um, that yellowish area. Those are 10-inch plus amounts here in Southwest Florida and Southern Florida, and also along the west coast of Florida from south of Tampa down to the Keys. All of that's Caribbean moisture that's moving up, and then a little nose sneaks up into the western part of the Florida Panhandle and coastal Alabama uh, toward once we get past Father's Day. But we'll see how that plays. But meanwhile, if you look in the Northeast, I mean, hardly any rain being indicated this week, other than whatever we get with the cold front. And then I'm here now into next Tuesday, Wednesday, Wednesday the 19th of June, and we're looking at about a half an inch of liquid total in that 10-day stretch. So we're really not looking at a whole lot of precip in the for a change in southern areas of the Northeast down into the Mid-Atlantic states.
Right, and it's to be in the northeastern United States, except again for late Friday and Friday night, will be a pretty nice stretch this week. I mean, again, the humidity is going to begin to noticeably climb on Thursday. Friday will just be an all-out typical hazy, hot. Well, I'll leave the word hazy out for the moment. I will say hot and humid. It may not necessarily be hazy, but then we'll have to watch for the threat of thunderstorms late on Friday and Friday night. But again, Joe, we may, not necessarily rolling the dice, but it looks like right now with some certainty that the next weekend, Father's Day weekend, looks to be a good one,
Yeah.
especially so on Daddy's Day on Sunday.
Nice high coming down for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Covers much of the east. You start to see the rains in Florida increase on Tuesday, and then more so Wednesday and beyond. Here, our high goes out offshore. We get into a west-southwest flow. So Thursday, we could see temperatures, I think, middle to upper 80s with some hot spots near 90. I'm thinking Friday could be upper 80s and low 90s. Cold front comes through. Friday night goes by. As long as it keeps on moving, another sizable high moves into the Great Lakes and into the Northeast for Father's Day weekend. Then that goes out underneath. Here comes the west southwest flow for the week of beginning Monday the 17th. And from that, it looks like we don't get another cold front until maybe Thursday the 19th or Thursday the 20th or Friday the 21st. and then another high tries to build in. So that's really pretty much. And there's nothing major going on as far as precipitation is concerned, thunderstorms, and that sort of thing. It's a relatively sort of a quiet end to an interesting spring.
Yeah, more than just interesting, especially if you live out in the Midwest, where they've had, I believe, the second most numbers of tornado occurrences in the Midwest in their history. This is one of the near the top of the list in terms of active weather. By the way, have you ever heard of a gentleman, Joe, by the name of Ben Knoll?
Well, that name does ring a bit of a bell.
Ben Knoll posts weather forecasts on Facebook, on social media. The interesting thing about Ben Knoll is that he is located not here in North America. He's doing his forecasts from, I believe, Australia, and and,
Really?
and it's kind of weird, and a lot of people, rely on and listen to what Ben Knoll says. And Knoll on his latest tweet, if you still call it that, even though it's now officially X, says summer is still loading in the Northeast, but hotter conditions are on the horizon. And he is saying that during the week of June 17th, several hot air masses appear poised to track east, likely bringing high heat. Signs are that the heat will stick around. The solstice is June 20th, after all. So he's saying beginning the 17th, and that's the day after Father's Day. So enjoy this week, even though we'll turn hot and a bit humid later on in the week and a bit uncomfortable. Uh, as he agrees with you, Joe, that apparently once we get past Father's Day, here comes the hot weather.
And you know what I found? I found the hummingbird feeder video. So I'm gonna putting up on the screen right now, and that's the back of my house. And you can see, by the way, the Tempest weather station that is up on my back deck. And I will set it in motion, and you could watch Mr. Hummingbird or Mrs. Hummingbird. I'm not sure which. I mean, it looks like it's the got the ruby color, so maybe it's the male. But he's just feasting here. I just love how they hover,
Oh, there, yeah. See, there it is.
and then he just takes off. It's just playing the repeat now. Anyway, I just kind of thought that this hummingbird feeder was. It's also you could put. It's got a place where you could put regular bird seed, and you can see there I have safflower seed on the bottom of the screen
Yeah,
there
yeah.
for regular birds. I haven't gotten any regular birds in there. Just the hummingbird.
I'll give it time. Once one regular bird finds it, they have their way of letting other birds know, like, hey, come follow me here. They get a load of this, and
Yeah, um I have like one, two, three. I have five other bird feeders in the front of my yard, and those are always busy. It's like Grand Central Station in there with birds going back and forth. In fact, I had a huge. I think he was huge. This really, really big male cardinal. I've never seen a cardinal as big as this cardinal was. And apparently, he's claimed my house as his territory because he spent yesterday fighting off like a bunch of other males that were trying to come in. And that's what I watched him do for like an hour, just going back and forth from tree to tree, fighting with other males and chasing them off, while the female's just sitting there just watching. She was just enjoying the show.
you talk about this hummingbird feeder. My kids got me a bird feeder, which does basically the same thing that you can watch them on your computer. My only problem is, Joe, I really don't have a place to put it because our surroundings are teeming with squirrels, and I know that if I put any kind of a bird feeder out, the squirrels are going to get at that feeder, and they're going to get at it before the birds do. So
Yeah.
I've never been able to figure out where to put a bird feeder, and we do have like a cover, so to speak, to try to preclude. But let's face it, these squirrels, they use
They
their
they're very inventive. They come with tools.
yes, they
They
do.
they
They do.
really do. Do you have Briller Jeopardy?
Yes, I do.
You do. Well, let's have it. Let's do it.
All right, let's go to ba, 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 ba. Go to Facebook and get the old Briller Jeopardy up. Ba, 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 ba. Scott Briller. Okay, on this Briller Jeopardy, we're going to continue with retired tropical systems in the Atlantic Basin. Tonight's letter, and by the way, this is a biggie because we had not one, not two, not five, not seven, but 10 retired names for the letter F.
Um. Okay. Uh, Fiona.
Fiona is yes from
You know,
19.
I used to be able to at least think of like four or five of them, and I don't know. I guess because I'm getting older, my brain stops at one.
It's
It's just
I tell you true. Every night Renan and I, we watch Jeopardy, and I watch it, and the answers come to me like a fraction of a second after whoever's on the panel, the
right.
three contestants. Whenever one of them rings in and says, and I said I knew the answer, but I was like a second too late, and this is what's happening to us. And there's no way in the world I think I could have possibly have gone on Jeopardy maybe 15, 20 years ago. I can't, no question, I can't do it anymore. I'd
No,
never, I'd never be able to ring in with the clicker. Somebody would come and,
they'd have to expand the show to at least an hour to get
the first host of Jeopardy, Art Fleming, poo pooed the new version, the one that we see now with Ken Jennings or with Alex Trebek, the late great Alex Trebek. And the reason why he poo pooed is that on the original Jeopardy, as soon as the answer appeared,
if
if you
you
knew what the
if
answer
you
was, you could ring right in,
and
bing,
he would stop. He would stop
right,
reading the clue.
stop reading the clue.
Yeah.
But you can't do that anymore. Now you have to wait until Ken Jennings, for example, reads the entire clue, and then I guess some kind of technology has been built in so that then you ring in or whatever. And
Yeah, I noticed that from the get-go. That was a big difference in the original Jeopardy. The chat board's been throwing up names, so we're going to use them. I came up with Fiona. They've come up with Florence,
Florence is there, 2018, yes.
Francis,
Francis on the list? Yes, Francis is on the list from 2004.
Fabian,
Fabian. I had not one but two cousins named Fabian from 2003.
Floyd.
Floyd, yes, Floyd, and who could, if you live in the lower Hudson Valley, how could you forget or not forget Floyd? Floyd really did a number. I was not living up here in Putnam Valley, but nearby in Yorktown Heights, I believe they picked up in just 2 or 3 hours from Floyd something like 13 inches of rain, and all the parkways were closed because of severe flooding because of Floyd. So, yeah.
Fran,
Fran from 1996, yes.
Faye,
Faye is
Faye, Faye.
Faye is not on the list.
Well, that's the first one out of the bunch. Felix.
Felix, yes, from 2007.
Um, yeah, Anthony or Hazel's with an H. We're doing F's tonight. Fifi.
Fifi, yes.
All right. Have you crossed off? How many do we have left?
Two left.
Two.
And
Uh,
let me just say, if I were doing this, if you were the one who was reading the names off, the first one that I would have mentioned on the list is one of the two that has not been mentioned yet.
okay.
From 1979, if I
Oh, Frederick.
Frederick,
Frederick.
which
Uh,
which came
and
after David.
and
It was
Anthony, which came after David, right, which was also retired. Anthony Orr and Patrick Darcy, Flora. Did we mention Flora already?
no, we didn't, and that pretty
Uh,
much is the list.
Michael McGuire also said Flora, so I just want to give him credit as well.
Right.
Chatboard did really. You guys did really good tonight. You got,
Yeah,
you
fantastic.
you banged through what 7 or 8 of them before we came to a halt. Very good.
I remember Flossie Miss Blue Ocean, but it was not on the list. So the list of 10 tonight: Fabian, Felix, Fifi, Fiona, Flora, Florence, Floyd, Fran, Francis, and Frederick. And I see that the chairman put
Frodrick.
all these in alphabetical order. So
It's not Frederick. It's Frodrick.
Friedrich,
Friedrich.
Frederick, or Frederick. Remember when?
Frankenstein.
Remember?
Frodrick Frankenstein.
Remember in an episode of the Flintstones where he got conked on the head, and he tells Barney and Betty and Wilma, the name is not Fred, it's Frederick.
Frederick. I
And he,
was
refer- and he,
speaking
refer-
of
and he referred to Betty as Elizabeth.
the I was channel surfing the other night, and one of the channels, one of the cartoon channels, had the Flintstones, and it was the one with Stony Curtis.
Stony Curtis. Stony Curtis!
Well, the Joe and Joe Weather Show is not brought to you by Stony Curtis or Perry Masonry, but Tempest by Weatherflow. The revolutionary Tempest weather system is yours. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the description to this podcast. You can run it right off your mobile device, and it's easy to install. Use the coupon code SPRING2024 because if you do, you will get.
10% off.
And we'll be back tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern.
We shall be back. Thank you to all who hit the like button 58 times. At least I think my counter is correct with
59.
59. And thanks to Anthony Orr for hitting the tip jar tonight.
All right, everybody. Night, night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Nighty night.